Hello and welcome to Scary Movie and a Sandwich, your cozy, easy listening podcast about tasty treats and scary stuff. I'm your host, Artem. Welcome to the show. On Scary Movie and a Sandwich, each week my guest and I pair a perfect sandwich with a carefully curated scary movie. This week, filmmaker Jazeel Gayle joins me in the Scary Studio to discuss the movie Fresh and to digest the Pork Banh Mi sandwich from Phorage, LA. Jazeel Gayle is a filmmaker to watch, and currently Jazeel has a short film out called Aphadia, a sci-fi story about a very unusual, life-altering drug. You can find Aphadia on YouTube, and you can follow Jazeel's work at Jazeel Gayle on Instagram. That's Jazeelgayle. Thank you, Jazeel, for this amazing conversation. Our pork banh mi sandwich comes from Phorage. That's spelled Phorage. Pho is in pho, the traditional Vietnamese dish. Phorage specializes in authentic Vietnamese cuisine, featuring such staples as pho, vermicelli, and of course, the exquisite banh mi sandwich. Folks, these banh mi sandwiches are outrageous. You absolutely have to go to Phorage ASAP. Treat yourself to some delectable Vietnamese cuisine. That's Phorage, Phorage. Phorage, thank you for these extremely gorgeous, absolutely delicious banh mi sandwiches. As always, I want to thank my team, my boots on the ground investigative reporter Antonio Lassar for your in-depth coverage of all horror synopsises. Thank you for your service. And to my mastermind of art ceremonies, Luther Thompson, who created the original artwork for Scary Movie and a Sandwich, which is pretty great. Our music today comes from the band Liberty. Liberty, we salute you. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in to Scary Movie and a Sandwich, a show for anyone who's ever been afraid or hungry. Enjoy. Welcome back to Scary Movie and a Sandwich, your cozy listening and easy watching podcast and vodcast about all things tasty and all things scary. I'm your host, Artem Yatsunov, and with me today in the living room studio, I'm really excited to have him on. This is director-writer Jazeel Gayle.
Hi.
Jazeel, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for doing this. It's really exciting.
I've never heard of vodcast.
Oh, I've recently heard it being tossed around. I was like, cool, yeah, I'll get into it.
I don't know if that's a thing.
I don't really know what a podcast really means.
No, podcast is a thing.
Well, yes, but why is it a pod? What's the pod?
Because the person who invented it decided to name it that.
Well, I think they were kind of riffing on that with the podcast.
Okay.
On this week's episode, my guest picked a very delicious sandwich. We came up with a pretty excellent pairing of a movie. Jazeel, could you please introduce our sandwich and our movie this week?
The sandwich I picked was a Porkshire banh mi from Phorage, and the movie is Fresh on Hulu.
Oof, excellent. Yes. Mm-hmm. For those of you who have not seen Fresh, we've got an all-original synopsis for you right now. Enjoy. Hi, everyone. We have a very special presentation. Our horror correspondent. She's hot. She's the love of my life. She is an excellent comedian, a sage, a sex maniac, and the hottest bitch in the biz. Most importantly, she's perfect, but she hates horror movies. So she has not seen this movie, Fresh, and she has not read the synopsis of this movie. So you're getting a fully objective synopsis of Fresh. Folks, without further ado, please welcome Antonia Lassar.
What's up, everybody? It's the hottest bitch in the biz. I made him say that. That was under duress. Hi, it's me, Antonia Lassar, your horror movie correspondent. I think that all of you are psychopaths, freaks. I think it's so disturbing that you're into all of this, and you should really evaluate your life choices. I will be reading the synopsis for the movie Fresh. Fresh, directed by Mimi Cave, a woman, is a gruesome and darkly satirical horror thriller. I feel like putting the word thriller on horror is really sort of dumb. Aren't they all thrillers? Is there a horror that's not thrilling? I wouldn't know. It's a darkly satirical horror thriller that explores the horrors of modern dating, relevant, specifically the commodification of women's bodies. Feminism. The story follows Noah, I love a gender-neutral name, a young woman navigating the bleak world of online dating who finds herself drawn to a charming stranger only to discover his horrifying secret, that he's into horror movies. And he has a horror movie podcast that's also about sandwiches. That's in the synopsis. Okay, what begins as a quirky rom-com, that's fun, takes a sudden turn into a nightmarish exploration of obsession, captivity, and cannibalism. It's like the first half of that sentence is my favorite sentence, and the second half of that sentence is my least favorite sentence, and someone put them together. Character descriptions. Noah, played by Daisy Edgar-Jones. Who's she?
She's from... Like you'd recognize her face.
Okay, I'd recognize her. Oh, that really sets her apart. Is she hot? No. In Hollywood? I can't believe it. Okay. Noah, played by Daisy Edgar-Jones, who I know and love. The film's protagonist, Noah, is a delusioned young woman who has lost faith in dating. Classic, ladies. Am I right?
I think it's really disillusioned.
Yeah, wait, what did I say?
Disillusioned.
Delusioned? Delusional? Okay, let me try it again. The film's protagonist, Noah, is a disillusioned young woman who has lost faith in dating. Her sharp wit and cynicism are tempered by her longing for a real connection. I get it. Which leads her into a dangerous relationship. Classic. Her journey from naive hopefulness to a fight for survival is at the core of the film. Boy, does this sound fun. Next character, Steve, played by Sebastian Stan, who is in the Marvel movies.
Yes, and he's also in that Pam and Tommy show.
Oh, yes, he was Tommy. Cute. Okay, Steve, played by Sebastian Stan, a charismatic and attractive surgeon. Moms. Surgeon. Steve initially appears to be the perfect romantic partner for Noah. However, beneath his charming exterior lies a monstrous secret. He's a cannibal who kidnaps women, harvesting and selling their body parts to wealthy clients. Oh boy. Steve is both seductive and chillingly detached, making him a terrifying and unpredictable antagonist. Great writing here, Booski. Great writing. He kidnaps women, he harvests and sells their body parts. Wow, I think watching this movie is such a good use of your time. Okay, next character, Molly, played by Jojo T. Gibbs. She's Noah's best friend. Noah's best friend, Molly, is fiercely protective and skeptical of Steve from the start. That's good. As Noah disappears, Molly embarks on her own investigation to uncover the truth, demonstrating loyalty and resourcefulness. Okay, here's the plot overview. The film opens with Noah's frustration with the online dating scene, and she encounters a series of disappointing and sleazy encounters. When she meets Steve, the surgeon, in a grocery store, his charm and apparent sincerity seem like a breath of fresh air. Their whirlwind romance quickly escalates, and Noah agrees to go on a weekend getaway with him. This is the thing about this. I do feel like this is showing that every single rom-com is this close to becoming a horror movie, especially because they all have terrible judgment just regularly. I believe it. However, things take a shocking turn when Steve drugs Noah and reveals his true intentions. Oh, he is a cannibal. Noah wakes up in his remote mansion, chained and terrified, as Steve calmly explains his horrific business, where he sells their flesh. As Noah endures the horrors of captivity, she must summon all her strength and cunning to survive. Yes, feminism, girl power. We can survive cannibalism. Steve's twisted obsession with her adds an extra layer of psychological torment, as he manipulates her both physically and emotionally. Oh, interesting. He's playing mind games with her. Dastardly. The film doesn't shy away from gruesome details. No, I'm shocked. Depicting the horrifying reality of Steve's operation, including the mutilation of other female captives whose bodies are being harvested piece by piece. What does that mean, piece by piece? Is he keeping them alive?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
He's just taking bits.
Bad. bad. Steve, don't do that. Oh, now I understand why he's a surgeon, because he's able to harvest and keep them alive. It's
so good.
Look, I respect the hustle. Okay, meanwhile, Molly, remember her, the friend? She grows suspicious of Noah's sudden disappearance and begins to dig into Steve's past, determined to save her friend. Is this gonna have a happy ending? The final act of Fresh is a tense and bloody fight for survival. Tense, bloody. I'm setting the scene. Noah uses Steve's attraction to her to manipulate him, playing along with his deranged fantasies long enough to plan her escape. He's like, I have a fantasy. That you're my camp counselor, and I'm a bad camper. She's like, that's fucked up. That's fucked up, Steve. That's in the synopsis. In a violent and cathartic showdown, Noah turns the tables on Steve, brutally killing him and freeing herself and the other captives. The film ends with Noah and Molly reuniting, physically battered but alive as they reflect on the horror they've endured. Fresh is both a gruesome exploration of the horrors of human trafficking, yeah, it makes sense, and a darkly comedic commentary on the grotesque extremes of modern romance. Funny. Its blend of visceral horror and sharp social commentary make it a shocking and unsettling experience. And if you like this, you should get therapy. That's how the synopsis ends. Okay, love you. Bye.
Folks, if you've never had a pork banh mi from Phorage, you got to get yourself over there right away. Jazeel, how did you...
I live near there. I live on the west side in LA. And it's in the Mar Vista area, and I saw it and I was like, oh, what is this place? And I ordered it, and like, it's now something I get like more than I should. I order it more times than I should be.
Oh my gosh. Listen, no judgment here. It's an incredible sandwich. I mean, I really meant what I said. I could eat this every day.
Yeah.
It's just, for some reason, that like combination of like sweet, salty, spicy,
And
fatty.
savory and fatty.
Oh man, really gets me.
Yeah.
Really gets me. And I think Phorage does a really, really nice job. So where is it located again?
Mar Vista.
In Mar Vista. Get yourself to Phorage, support local businesses. Enjoy. This is a fantastic pork banh mi.
Do you know the story of the banh mi? Because I don't.
A little bit. Like a really broad history of the banh mi is that in the 1800s, maybe earlier, that the French colonized Vietnam. As white colonialists want to do, decided that they need to impose their culture on this
You would know, being a white European
colonizer. Yeah. This is
just in your blood.
This is literally,
you see things
it's
not
in the DNA.
See things that's not yours, and you're like, I need that.
Yeah. How do I improve that by taking it?
By taking it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And subjugating.
All the time. This is at the core of who white people are.
Yeah.
And the French were not an exception. They came through and they were like, well, these uncultured people need to experience a baguette. They need to experience pâté and foie gras. They need to experience coffee. And at the time, like, all the rage was the charcuterie boards, which is, when you think of a charcuterie board, it's just a deconstructed sandwich, you know? So they had all these things imported. They are too expensive for the locals to afford. Not only that they're not sold to the locals, but the locals are forced and subjugated to make this food for their colonial oppressors. So you have this food that gets created called the banh mi. Banh mi literally just means bread. For a long time, it's just these like the greatest hits of what the French like in their food. And in pâté, it's different types of fine meats, cheese, usually a little butter. Then 20th century comes around, World War I, World War II, resources become scarce, imports are limited into Vietnam. Eventually, the French leave, I think over a century, where the Vietnamese had been making these foods and are really, really adept at making them. So they kind of, I don't know how Vietnamese folks think about it. I don't know if it's reclaiming this sandwich, but they now filled it with things that are much more traditional. There's a traditional ham called chao lua. There's a traditional type of head cheese called jiu tu. Pork belly called jambon that's sometimes used. There's a savory sweet ground pork, which I think this is the type of pork that we had in this. It's just called nem non. All of these things. And the bun itself changes, because instead of being a all flour baguette, it's 50% wheat flour, 50% rice flour. Then now if you go to north, central, southern regions of Vietnam, you get different flavors of foods. For example, like in the north, there's a lot of cracked black pepper and they add egg. In central Vietnam, there's a lot more herbs. And then you go southern and there's more chilies and spices in it as well. And, in the pickled sort of veggies. It's an interesting food, but nowadays where you have every white hipster around wants to tell you, here's the traditional, authentic, faux and Vietnamese food. You got to get this, And so it's back to this conversation of who makes the food, who gets to enjoy the food, who's the food for. and what's the quote unquote authentic representation of it. You know, so like I thought that there's some really interesting things that Fresh talks about in terms of food. Certainly, you know. So that's my spiel.
Food anthropology is amazing. Always.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point, folks know what happens in Fresh. We all know a lot more about the banh mi. I think we're ready to dive in.
Yeah.
Folks, this is the patented
Patented.
Scary Movie in a Sandwich Tasty Chats with me, your host, Artem, and our fantastic guest, Jazeel Gayle.
Hi.
Jazeel, let's get into it.
Okay.
What will be your spiel on this movie? What is this movie trying to say? What's it about?
The ways in which men subjugate women and the kind of carnal consumption of women as a commodity, as a piece of, meat to own, and then women fighting back against that,
Yeah.
That to me is the message of the movie. What do you think?
I thought about those things a lot. I think objectification. There's a unique lens that's kind of presented at that because I think about media and stuff and how often women are degraded or almost broken down to just body parts, and we have so many terms that we use to describe body parts that are food related, you know. And in this movie, you have shots where literally you have a freezer full of specifically women's body parts. You know, there's like somebody even has a line, "I don't know who I am. He's been taking chunks of me bit by bit." You know, it's this whole interesting, harrowing idea of being subjugated, but then like further like consumed. I thought that maybe the message of the movie overall was this sort of exploration of autonomy that's like constantly being taken away.
Autonomy, yeah, I see that interpretation, and I think you're right.
I really appreciated how much humor was in this.
Yes, there was a lot of humor in it, and you need it.
You really do.
So when you're making something like this, you have to have humor, or else you're going to drive people crazy. And also, the humor makes the horror better, right? Laughing and suddenly being scared is better than just being scared all the time. So you need in screenwriting and just storytelling in general, I always liken it to like a Vice script, right? Whether it's comedy, action, thriller, horror, fantasy, it doesn't matter. You're supposed to ratchet up and down the tension throughout the entire narrative until you ratchet all to the end and the climax and whatever. So if you just have it tense the whole way, that becomes flat.
Yeah, because us as the audience, we get used to it.
Yeah,
we get used to the tension.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's still tense. Now if it's tense all the time, it's not tense.
Horror and comedy work in these really, really similar dynamics. The tension is built, released, built, released. What about specifically the humor about dating?
It's funny, I get into my story.
All right, get into it.
I basically went on like a really crappy date 2 days ago. That wasn't first date, like first time, and I'll never see this person again, hopefully. Nothing bad, like nothing like, there's no, like I don't have any crazy story.
But you just didn't click.
Yeah, we didn't click, and it was like, kind of like just like the opening of this movie where it was like what's happening here,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know the situation, it's so awkward, and then
were they just like, here's my favorite movie, here's what I work?
It was very much like I was, and I'm sure they have their reaction of me, right?
Well,
So
for sure, yeah.
It was very much like I'm trying to have a conversation with someone giving me one or two words back, and it's like, okay. I was like, and so I kind of like ended it quickly, not quickly, just ended it. I was like, okay, it's getting late, So going back to the movie, I definitely know what she was going through, the dating and people like, and I love the part where she's like, I hate this.
Yeah.
Where she,
he's like, tell me a secret. And she's
I hate this. She's like, I hate the back and forth, the awkwardness, and I hate it too. It's just, it's like. And I think everyone does, everyone just wants to skip to like be in a relationship, but you can't just skip, obviously, So that I appreciated. I love the guy with the scarf. I thought he was great. I thought he was perfectly cast, perfectly acted.
I loved his I was just doing you a favor. You're not on my type.
Yeah. I just thought that whole scene was interesting.
I love the scarf.
The scarf was interesting, but to me it was interesting I wonder what that scene would be like without the text, right? Because they set up that scene, they set him up to be a failure already. And she goes into it thinking, this is going to be a failure. Like her expectation is on the floor, right? And she and then he just kind of fulfills that.
Right,
you know.
totally.
And I wonder what the scene or the film would have been like if it wasn't like that. If it started, she's going on a date and she's excited, you know, and she gets disappointed. You know, I think that not better or worse. You know, I wondered what it would have been like. I really like the filmmaking in that first scene with her in the car, because there's a lot of storytelling happening.
Yeah.
Without telling anything.
Right. We don't see the text message she gets.
We don't see the text message.
Which is, you know, this place is cash only.
We don't see the text message. We don't see
her forwarding the text message to her friend.
We don't see who Molly is, but we totally understand that Molly's the best friend just by the ringtone.
Yep.
And the ringtone comes back later, right? We don't see all of that. We don't even know she's going on a date. But we get all of this in this very succinct, tight, you know, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, which, you know, if you've ever written or directed films, communicating a lot in a very short amount of time and in a very natural way that doesn't feel like spelling it out is like the trifecta.
It even sets up the visual language of the film, because there's these moments where she looks at herself in the mirror, she kind of fixes her eyebrows, she looks at her teeth, and you have these sort of smaller zoom ins on a person's face, and also there's a type of like, I don't know what specifically it is in terms of like camera work, but it's like there's a sharpness on her, but there's a lot of blur around her. And this sort of motif happens later on a lot too, where we sort of just get these sort of almost images, the way we're sort of communicating things. So it sort of allowed this, because it then allowed the next scene to have a lot of work where we just watch her face observing him and reacting. We watch her eyes notice the scarf. We have a close up on the you know, this, it sort of created this interesting intimacy.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that ends up really paying off, because the movie even goes into that territory a lot more about, you know, intimacy. So like, yeah, along with the exposition, I thought that for me, it instantly was just brought me into this like intimate world of this woman.
Yeah, you know, the close-up stuff, I noticed that as well, but I didn't get intimacy. I got like, I was kind of uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable, not in like a disturbing way. I was like, oh, why don't I see your extreme close-up of her teeth.
For sure.
But like you said, it is the theme of the movie. Right. So once you watch a whole movie, you see it fits. Right.
Yeah.
But
Getting
at first,
too close.
But at first I was like, oh, I don't want to see all that. You know. So that was my reaction to all that.
Yeah. What are we gonna do? Watch her floss? And
Yeah.
Just the first 30 minutes are about the anxieties of getting to know someone, and then we don't even get the credits until 30 minutes in.
We got credits. We didn't get the title.
That's right. Yeah, we didn't get the title until she's drugged and passed out. The filmmakers decided that we'll tell you that this is when, quote unquote, the horror or whatever has started, or quote unquote, this is what this movie is really about, which is so interesting. You know, it's like there's something about that, like, who's the person that I'm dating, who's the person that I married, and it's like a year in, you're like, oh, this is a totally different person that I got involved with. Why do you think that food was the pivotal thing about this movie?
I have a question for you. Why do you say why food? Because I would say why cannibalism.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Tell me a bit more about that question.
For me, it's not really about food. It's about cannibalism. Yeah, you can definitely go into that. Is cannibalism food? You know, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
To me, cannibalism and food are like a Venn diagram. They definitely have a crossover, you know, but like they're very...
I think that's the whole point.
Yeah, they definitely have a crossover, but like something like the menu, you know, the menu, that's about food.
Right.
And food culture.
Right.
And food etiquette, and food, you know, every economics.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
This one to me isn't about food culture or food economics or food etiquette. It's about cannibalism. Again, not a criticism of the movie. You know, it's just I noticed that question, and I was like, because to me, and I'm thinking about it, you know, to me, this could have like the meals that they were preparing were irrelevant in this. It wasn't like, okay, this is, you know, a braised thigh, you know,
right,
whatever. It was, and I think rightfully so, like they didn't go into what he was preparing, right? They got into what part of the body he was preparing, but not what dish he was preparing.
And I think there's maybe like once or twice, like there's a meatball dish, and then another time he eats like prosciutto that's made from somebody's, you know, right. But yeah, you're right. It's not about the dishes.
Yeah. So yeah.
I actually am a big fan of the cannibalism trope in horror movies. This is why I think I love genre movies so much, is that they have the ability really rapidly to introduce a new idea because we're so used to the rules of a genre movie, right? It's easier to subvert. I just find cannibalism so fascinating because it's like, it is a massive human taboo, obviously. But it's one of the few taboos that we're kind of comfortable joking about. We're kind of comfortable discussing as like, what would have to happen to you in order for you to like, succumb to cannibalism. We have really popular, there's one major, very popular pop culture character, like Hannibal Lecter, and there's so many movies and there's TV shows spun off them. I think people really think about this topic in different ways, but I think it's something that people get excited about. I certainly get excited about engaging with it because to me, it has this question about, if our food, if what we consume has an identity, what does that change about what we consume or how we, interact with it? What are your thoughts on that? Like, if your food had a name, how would you think it would interact with it?
It definitely changes things, being detached from the meat you're eating, from the pork we just ate.
Yeah.
Not knowing, what the pig looked like, what its name was, who its father was and mother was, and where it came from. Even though there are answers to all those questions, right? It would change what we eat, and how we eat it, and if we would waste it or not, knowing what this animal or person, if we're eating other people, had sacrificed. I want to going back to like the cannibalism as a subject. You talked about Hannibal Lecter, and it's funny. And I was waiting for this in the movie, and I didn't get it. And, this was a misstep or anything. It's more like, maybe I have a different interpretation of cannibalism. There's cannibals who, like, I rarely ever hear the story about cannibalism as a taste thing. It's even in tribes or where maybe cannibalism was a part of their culture. A lot of it, from what I know, is not necessarily because some guy's thigh meat just tastes amazing. Right. It's about some type of spirituality. Yeah. It's about some type of ritual. It's about some type of power dynamic. It's about some type of political, payment or sacrifice or those things. And so I was waiting for that in this, but it consistently maintained what I've never eaten a person, so I can only guess, but it's consistently maintained this idea that this meat is just so special, right? Right. It is the Wagyu of, it is the veal of meat. It is the top of the menu here. You mentioned Hannibal. There's a better example of that. You mentioned, Jeffrey Dahmer, right, who ate his victims. For him, it wasn't about, this person tastes good. He didn't even, I don't think he even cooked. I mean, like, he cooked it, but it was more of like so I'm not eating raw meat. He didn't like prepare a dish, or like, let me garnish this man's fucking, intestines. Like, for him, and he said explicitly, it's about having a part of them inside of him, right? And having them be a part of him. Yeah. So, in all my understanding of cannibalism in both pop culture and in real life, it's rarely ever about, wow, this just tastes so good. Oh, once my God! But you can't go back. And I was waiting for that in this film. I was waiting for someone to bust that pretense, because I do think it is a pretense.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, that's what right? We get, I forget the character's name, Steve, or he says, prepared right. It's exquisite, right? And then our main character tries tries meat and she's also impressed by it. But you're right. We don't ever really unlock kind of go, does it taste that much better?
Exactly.
Is this,
Exactly.
Because
And why I say it's a pretense, I'm not saying that there isn't truth to it. Here's why it was a pretense. Why send pictures of the body, clothes, specifically lingerie? We don't do that for food we eat now.
it's interesting because I wasn't sure if, let's say, the parallel to that would be like, oh, here's your steak and here's a pair of boots that were made out of the hide of the cow that you are currently eating. It wasn't like, I don't know if that's even a close enough parallel.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying this film, maybe I won't put it all in the film, but the main character, what is his name?
I think Steve, the Sebastian Stan
Yeah.
character.
He justifies his actions.
Yeah.
Because he's a psychopath, right? Like
Right. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned the concept of sacrifice because it's a term that he uses too. He says, it's about giving. So it's about giving a piece of yourself to be one with someone. It's about sacrifice. It's love, And it is an interesting, of course, very like particular point of view. And yeah, it's less about taste. And obviously it's a very psychopathic one.
If this really was about taste,
Fucking Steve.
none of this, first of all, this whole women taste better than men bullshit.
Yeah, that's weird.
Right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't need to know these women's name. There would be no need for their clothes. There would be no need for any of that. This isn't about the taste of their body. Because and if it was, then it would have been about food. And to me, that's why I asked you about cannibalism. To me, this wasn't about food. This would have been about, wow, he is going to take that breast tissue and fucking make a pate and da-da-da-da-da and make a curry and da-da-da, and then now he's and then serve it to someone who has no idea.
Right.
Do the goddamn, what is his name? The barber.
Oh, the barber of Seville, the meat pies?
Yeah. Do that and serve it to someone unaware of what they're eating.
Yeah.
And then it answers your question. Then it's about food.
Right.
But this is about cannibalism. This is about eating these women. And there's no surprise they all look very similar. There's no surprise that in that fridge there was no brown body in there. There's no surprise that he's going for the same girl. And that's fine. If I'm saying that's fine if that's a pretense he is using to sleep at night. Right? Like
Right.
I'm just busting the taboo. I'm eating the best meat. But I was waiting for the film to say to me to like be like, fuck you, you're not.
Yeah.
You are
Interesting, yeah.
You and your ilk are all misogynist dogs who all need to like be lined up in a firing squad.
Get into it.
Yeah.
I totally see what you're saying. I also kind of felt that, that idea of, right, like if you knew the name of your food. Well, it seemed like for these clients, they wanted to name the name of the food. They wanted to see it. He even
said it about one thing. He said this would cost $30,000. It would cost more if she was alive,
Yeah.
Like, it's not about food. And like I keep saying, I want to make that clear. It's not a diss on the movie. That's interesting. I just think because the film doesn't make a stance on it, somebody, in my opinion, and again, there's no right or wrong way to interpret any of this. Somebody can walk away from this thinking this is a commentary on food, right? And shit, it might well be. Maybe I'm the one. Maybe the filmmaker walks in here like, no, this is about food. You're an idiot.
Right, but
there's no right or wrong.
But I think there are two. I think it's using cannibalism to have a really pointed view, and as you set out at the beginning, saying about women being oppressed and dominated by men, and like there's moments where we see food as these. There's a couple of dinner scenes, and they're romantic, and they're meant to be romantic, right? There's a couple of dinner scenes that are very scary because they are forced romance. It's this again. Food here is symbolic of something of an intimate communication, a precursor to a relationship. You go on a date with someone to have dinner. So food here is very much the experience of the food, the context of the food, right? It is really in line with what you're saying, is that it's not the flavor of the food, it's what's happening around this food. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the quote-unquote lighter parts of the movie, meaning the humor, I think, in the movie. Because I think there's a lot of fun things that are happening here about dating, about romance. I found it kind of exciting to have characters who clearly don't like dating, but still feel like they want to be in a relationship. And I just thought that that's a really interesting juxtaposition. And until we found out that he's got other intentions in his mind. We also get the sense from that Sebastian Stan character that he's approached her because he just thinks she's really, really attractive. He thinks she's really, really cute. He's not necessarily someone who's like a serial dater. He seems to be having genuine chemistry with her.
Like the moments of levity, were great. The one that comes to mind is the first cooking scene, where him running out in slow motion, all excited, dancing to whatever he's listening to.
Right. Tossing the meat into the boxes.
And the sidekick character, Molly, the ending. Like I said at the top, like those things, I think it's very smart the filmmakers put that in there. Because you have to, the subject is so heavy.
Yeah.
It's so heavy that you have to put those moments of levity in there. No, that's not true. You don't have to. It's better when you put those moments of levity in there.
What do you think makes the subject heavier? I mean, I know I kind of want to like talk a little bit about the lighter moments, but like we need the lighter moments because the subject is heavy, right?
Right.
So what do you feel like is the heavier part of this movie?
Eating people.
Eating people. Yeah.
there's no subtlety.
What's
there's no
what's so
subtlety
crazy
here.
about that?
Yeah, there's no subtlety here. There's no nuance here. Not in the movie. I just mean like in that.
Yeah. But do you feel like the heaviness comes more from that or from the pointed look at the way men interact with women?
No, it's eating people.
It's eating people.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know about you, but that's pretty heavy.
That's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
I guess you're right. I kept thinking about just moments when we had these really interesting choices of what men want from women or how men want women to behave or how men want women to look. There are like these really interesting subtle moments, and some of the like funny banters also. It's like later there's a scene where Steve brings her a dress that he wants her to wear on their date, and she says, "Wow, it's really pink." And then we see her in this dress, and it's like this baby pink thing. It's so like there's these like subtle, nuanced moments of just, is Steve aware of his own views?
Yeah, I'm a gay man, so I'm pretty removed from the dynamics of a sexual relationship with a woman. But what's interesting, that's a thing that I found a little one note about this film, is the portrayal of men. I got the message and the viewpoint on men.
Yeah.
Within the first 5 minutes.
For sure.
And it never let up, which is fine. Go ahead, tell your truth. And there are moments when I think it tries to, like where she's walking in the alley and she sees a guy coming and it's a guy with a baby.
Right.
And that I was like, okay, but it still maintains that.
And I mean, even through her maybe falling head over heels in the first 30 minutes for him, there was still the threat of the man, kind of continuously through it.
Yeah.
She's sort of, it's almost like this element of, again, sort of the intimacy or too closeness is about, vulnerability, right? And it's her saying, let me just put myself out there. Let me give this guy a shot. Okay, we'll go away on a thing. It's going to be really great. Like her constantly sort of putting her hopes out there that things are going to be great. And of course, obviously things go in a version of the worst possible thing you could possibly have,
exactly.
Yeah. But to your point that I agree. And you brought up this moment where he goes like, women just taste better. I really just thought like, oh, what a great moment for him to just say, you know what, the male meat just wasn't selling as well. I thought it would have been kind of a more interesting thing to sort of look at, like there's a spectrum here, But instead it was extremely pointed.
Exactly, which is why I was waiting for someone to call him out on it,
But also if he said if women taste better, he clearly must have tasted somebody else before too.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that would have been a good opportunity for us to see, he's an equal opportunity cannibal. He goes after everyone.
The thing for me, as a filmmaker, no matter what the film is, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Jaws, doesn't matter what it is. Toy Story. No, I mean films that will go down in the annals of time with just the height of the genre.
Yeah.
I still pick it apart and think, what if they did this differently?
For sure. Oh, for sure.
What if they did? And so me saying, what if they did this differently, isn't saying they did it wrong and they should have done it.
But what if?
My what if here is, what if we didn't show the clients? To me, that's where the men are all evil thing came from.
Oh my God, because those clients.
If they didn't show all,
they look like anime villains. They were just
exactly.
so overt. Yeah.
Exactly. And we could have intuited who the clients were. It would have been no surprise if, there's 100 people on that list and all 100 of them were men. No one would have been like, wow, this is a shocking statistic. We would have all been. But the fact that they, like you said, all look like, one had a cowboy hat on, The other, I mean, one guy was sick, but it still was just like.
And there's a pan out shot at the very end, sort of like stylized, that they're all inside this box that's supposed to represent like the box that all this meat gets sent in. But when they pan out, there's one guy in like bondage gear. There's one guy that's
right.
All
of that. And what if we saw suggestions of the clients, but not the clients themselves? Like we just saw the food on the plate or the boxes being open. So you can put in who the clients were. And I just thought, if you're going to do that, add some nuance, and maybe there's a woman or two in there, right? Because that's not unheard of. What if there's a parent feeding the meat to their child,
Yeah.
that
would have been really, really interesting.
Yeah, just to break it up from the very clear, like, I want it to be like, girl, we got it.
Yeah.
This is a man on woman crime. We got it.
Yeah, and totally. And in some ways, I felt like I could do without even just seeing who the people were. I appreciate that when we did see them, that they were just like ham-fisted and there was no nuance. I was like, cool. I almost in a way, like if there was suddenly a woman there eating some of this woman meat, I'd be like, I think they just put that in there just to pander. Like I thought that was like, I got it. That's the way you want to deal with it. That's the way you want to present it, as these like pure evil incarnations.
But at the same time, how dare we tell this filmmaker how to portray men, right? If this is their experience. So how dare we say that? However, I do think, like, again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. This is the way that this person decided to tell the story. It would just have been interesting if we didn't see the clients. And I think they would have been scarier. I can fucking analyze that part till tomorrow, but it was just interesting.
Yeah, what the movie would have been like if we just had this sort of nebulous somebody that he's sending these boxes to.
Yeah.
Who would we have imagined is getting these boxes?
I mean, we would have imagined who did get the box, who we saw, but it would have been cooler to imagine them.
You feel like the people that receive the boxes are exactly the kind of people we would have
imagined. Exactly.
Interesting.
Jeff Bezos is getting the box.
That's right.
With his cowboy hat. But the thing that I thought could have been cool. Mm-hmm. Sebastian Stan maintaining, if someone challenged him on this meat thing, this like meat quality thing, and he tried to maintain, no, what do you like? I'm a good person, because to me that
he's like, no, I'm a good person. This is just really good for you.
Yeah,
you have to eat this if you want to be, this and that, better, faster.
Right, that makes to me a really compelling villain. Someone who's like, I know I'm doing, for everyone thinks I'm doing bad, but this is like, you have to taste this.
Right.
Like once you taste this, it'll just be different. And she tastes it, and it's like, what if she's like, this doesn't taste that good?
Well, let me ask you this, because I think this is off camera. You mentioned something that I thought was just a kind of a fun quick take on it, where it was like Get Out for women, I think you said. And actually, just to compare for a second to a similar sort of twist reveal in Get Out, for those who haven't seen Get Out, spoiler, when the main character finds this box of photographs of his girlfriend, and it's photographs of her girlfriend's exes, and he sees that she's only exclusively dated black men, and then he finds a couple of photos of her dating black women as well. It felt like a similar twist, or at least an opportunity to sort of show that in this movie, where we had a couple of moments where we had the clients, and then we had a couple of moments when he moves this big picture and we see these little cubbies that are all dedicated to all of his victims. And actually, you brought up something that actually I didn't realize, kind of with ignorant white eyes, but when they walked into the freezer and it's all white body parts, but when they then go into the cubbies, there are some bodies, there are a couple of brown people that had been taken by him, but why were their body parts like showcased in the freezer? There was like these moments where the lens of this movie was again communicating something about.
You go back to, like I said, it did feel like the female centric Get Out, and that is a compliment to me. What I'm saying, because Get Out is brilliant. The difference is in Get Out made it very clear that this is a racist endeavor. All the victims are black and all the benefactors are white. But what I think makes Get Out, adds a little bit more subtlety to Get Out than this, is that it's all under still a pretense, but a believable pretense. The pretense is living longer. The pretense is we're using black bodies because they're stronger, right? No one buys that. That is the only, like, if you guys were Asian, we would be hunting only Asian people. There's a reason you're hunting black people. That is bullshit. It's a pretense. This is
right. Like and it's a very great like sort of sci-fi moment of Get Out that I think is kind of really special to get that message across in a really clear way.
Right. Yeah, and like you're bidding on black bodies. This is racist America. No one. I mean, it's clear.
No one is confused. Yeah.
But with this one, I guess I wish there was a way where, like for instance, let's say it was breast milk and breast tissue.
Yeah.
Right. Men have breasts, but we don't have mammary glands and all those things, right? We don't produce milk and all those things. But if this was about the objective, great quality of breasts as meat, right? Then you would say, okay, cool. That's awful. This is terrible. We don't, this is terrible. Oh, but that's why all the victims are women.
Right.
So the pretense would be more believable, even though this is misogyny through and through.
Right.
But because this pretense wasn't at all believable, at least for me, I think for you it was a little bit, and maybe that's a difference between me and you. Because for me, the pretense, I didn't buy the pretense at all. This has nothing to do with the quality of human flesh versus lamb. This is about you have sadism, misogyny, all of that wrapped into one. So I clocked that from the beginning.
I think the movie was offering a lot of potential interpretations or things.
Yeah.
Like I felt like that was cool. That, for example, like when she has dinner with him or when she tries the meatball, we're meant to think that she is in some kind of mental state where either she's already kind of coming up with the ruse of how to like trick him, how to like make him like her, or there is a part of her that is now starting to think about, like, what if this was her life and she had to survive and be here? Like we sort of are starting to sort of wonder about her mental state and about actually how she's interpreting these things. So when she tastes the meat, we don't know if she maybe is tasting it and doesn't want to admit to herself, like, fuck, that's... Well, how do you go back from this?
You see the menu, right?
Yeah.
Comparing it to that, it's her challenging Ray Fiennes' character, and it's like, oh, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
But in this movie, no one says that.
Nobody says that. Yeah, and
no one says, "Oh no, you're full of shit."
Right, and
they just kill him, which is, listen,
is legit. Yeah,
you should.
But which is, I think, where this movie maintains the tension. It keeps him as a bad guy through and through by having him be so potentially volatile. This moment with our main character, she tries the meatball. Does she like it? Does she not? There's like the potential for us to imagine the world in which she does, and I think there's just...
Oh, I didn't know. No.
Well,
not a chance.
Not a chance.
Not a chance.
For me, it just put that thought in my mind of being like, is there a world in which she would be on? Well, then we go to this scene where we meet this guy's, alleged wife, right? And then it kind of created this other like narrative, like, all right, so what is this talking about now? Mm-hmm. What is this? What do they call that?
Stockholm.
The Stockholm syndrome. What is this like? This Stockholm situation, because we meet his wife, we find out he's got kids. The wife, we are assuming, is one of his former victims because she's missing a leg. Mm-hmm. So then it kind of puts this thought in your mind, like, at which point did she make the cross? Was she, unlike our character, who you're definitively like, there's no way she liked them?
No, there's no way she liked it.
Where maybe this blonde woman ate the meat and said, "Oh, I see where you're coming from. I'll help you get more meat because this is exquisite."
No, that woman.
What is her deal?
My interpretation of that woman is that she's also crazy.
Sort of similar to the way that Sebastian Stan's character Steve is completely as the psychopathic.
No, in a different way. In a different
way. But both are out of touch with say normal life. Yeah. It was interesting. I liked that we had another twist. I like that these twists get coming. Although sometimes I guess they kind of got away from the central idea of
listen. Like, the twists were great. The thing that I liked the most was Molly. Because when Molly started, I was like, oh, because she started off, and she kind of still was, she was the sassy black sidekick. Yeah. No, girl, you better, if they had cut to a fat black woman with big hoop earrings going, no, girl, you better run, I would not have been surprised. Mm-hmm. Because of the way they were treating Molly as a character. Yeah. Like, she was just, sassy and, peppery and all, and I was like...
And just happened to be the voice of reason. She really knew what was going on all the time.
And centering on always orbiting the white person. This is a flat character. But when they centered her and she became very smart and active, I was like, oh, that's interesting. This is good. And when she became a victim, I was like, oh, like if they had killed Molly, I would have flipped the fuck out.
Yeah, for sure.
I would have flipped the fuck out
Yeah,
if they killed. And the reason is because Molly is so good.
Yeah.
And
you're right. When she starts being a detective, she starts using these little
and
reverse image searches, and she finds the house.
Exactly. And you're like,
she sends her location to the bartender. She's doing all the stuff that
Yes.
typically this character is fucking up.
I just loved Molly as a kid. I wanted to see more of Molly, and like Molly and her fighting at the end was lovely. I loved that. The women fighting him at the end was great.
Yeah.
Like I was like, yes, fucking bash that motherfucker's
It's so cool.
head.
Yeah,
in.
it's a good scene.
Like, you know, and I also love the strength dynamic, you know, young fit guy fighting 3 severely injured women, right? So it wasn't like, you know, he was holding his own even though he was bleeding from the crotch, you know. And I love the brutality of that fight. I would have went more. I would have gone full Tarantino on that motherfucker.
Cuts, bruises, blood everywhere.
Like, bash that motherfucker's brains out. Like that one shot at the end.
The Kill Bill in the kitchen opening scene.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
That's what I wanted. Not some like
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to see his brain just
yeah,
like, you know.
I thought that was one moment where I was like, ugh. I guess this is still a horror movie trope. But it's like, how are we gonna walk away without just cutting this fucking guy's head off?
Yes.
We punched him a bunch of times, and then we're just gonna stumble out here.
Like,
Grab one of these knives and just put it in his fucking, like, through his fucking heart and be done with it. We don't need to have him wake up and find a gun and go looking for it.
No,
You know?
I like that it was extended. I love
No.
that.
I liked that the scene became extended. I'm just saying it still was like, that was like horror movie logic where I was like,
oh, yeah, he's
can't
not
be,
dead. He's not dead.
please.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah,
of course he's not
like to
dead.
me, when she bit his dick off, I was like,
Oh, I love that.
I was like, that to me would have been a 5-minute moment.
Yeah.
If I was in my head.
Okay.
I would have loved to see her latch on and him trying to get like the comedy of it just to hurt him where the family jewels are.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I
Yeah.
love that. I love the Jazeel Gayle cut of this. There's something.
Yeah, I would have
This
had
is
her
fun.
held on to like a Rottweiler.
You know, it's so funny to imagine this because I love that scene of them having this date and it becomes more languid, almost in the way we're looking things. There's more slow motion as they're sort of like maybe getting more drunk. But I love that there's a sharp shift and she's just down there, latched on.
Like a
He's
fucking-
trying to get her off.
Yep.
He's probably hitting
Like a
her.
snapping turtle.
And
Just-
she's
it's over.
on there. Maybe she's punching him to stay
And like
on
she's
there.
punching him in the head.
And
He's punching her in the head.
Just going nuts for sure.
But the fact that it wasn't that doesn't make it bad.
No,
It's
no, just saying.
I hated him so much that I wanted.
I would have been.
I wanted a little torture porn there at
Interesting,
the end.
yeah.
I wanted to see him truly have a horrific. I mean, his death was horrific. But
I love the brutality of the choice to bite his dick off. I thought it was great.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was great.
I mean, it was, but it was also obvious. I was like, dude, you're not gonna let this woman
go down on you, right?
Like-
But to tell you the truth, when I first saw it, I didn't see it coming.
Oh really?
When I first saw it, I was like, wow, and I was just like, what's the movie trying? I was just reading way too far into it. What's the movie trying to say here? What's going? Well, that makes
no.
more sense.
I was like, oh no, she's gonna bite his dick off.
It's so funny. As just a side note about like putting gore in horror movies, I recently watched something where there was this interesting juxtaposition of things being kind of campy and slapsticky, and then like really extended graphic violence. And it was just making me think about like in terms of how as a viewer you're like experiencing those things. And yeah, if anywhere in this movie where we could have had massive amounts of gore and blood, I think the ending would have been. But I also I do think that they did a good job.
Absolutely,
I really found it enjoyable.
But here's the thing. This criticism, even with you said the Jazeel cut.
Yeah.
Someone else would have said more because that's the strength of him as a villain.
Yeah.
That there is no punishment good enough for someone someone this vile.
Yeah.
So even if we saw him got put into a fucking wood chipper, if we saw him people would still have been like, no, I want not enough because he's so vile. He's so unredeemable as a human. Yeah. Another shout out, the art department on this. That fake meat, that fake leg that he first worked with, I was blown away. I was like, this is amazing.
It was really good.
I was like,
He just cuts through and it just looks like meat.
It looks like I was like, that's a real egg. This looks so good. Another thing that was really good, and I didn't notice it until the end, was the sound design. They made sure to give you the wetness sound of food in your mouth.
Oh yeah.
The even, and I was noticing they were cranking it up even in times where they weren't eating.
In the meatball scene,
You know?
she picks up her fork, and there's a moment she just touches the porcelain, and it echoes out to really amplify.
And
then
big
we hear
big moments like that,
and
and
even
even
slurping up the
Yeah.
getting the spaghetti on the fork.
all of that was like, I was like, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really
brilliant. The silverware on the teeth, all of that is
Yeah.
like, it just makes for an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
You know,
All that-
I would have, and this is,
The Jazeel Gayle cut.
yeah. And for everyone listening, this isn't for Mimi. You made a brilliant film. This is me saying, "Oh,
It's
I'm so inspired."
I
by
mean,
it.
as intense and as dark and as many things that it says, it's a super fun film.
Yeah.
It's like just like fun to watch. Like
Right.
I think it's really
So,
exciting.
so when I say I would have, this is me saying I'm so inspired. I have ideas.
Uh-huh.
I would have. I would have wet the lips a little bit more.
Mm.
You know, have you ever seen someone talk, eating, and their mouth is like
Glistening.
with the
Yeah.
food or whatever?
Yep.
And you're just, but in a disgust, you're just like,
It's a lot. Yep.
wipe your fucking mouth, dude. You know, like I would have had that.
They just had a nice oily bite of some pasta, and it's
just
all
dripping,
right
and you're just like-
there, and it's
I'm just like, oh my
Man,
god,
yeah.
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 I'd have gone more with it.
Yeah, those moments to me also have this like them eating experience. I like that was still a part of it. How they ate the food, how they kind of interacted with it, and yeah, there's so many details like that that just
Yeah,
really kind of crank up the ugh. Yeah. Let me ask you this: I feel like we've really gotten into it.
Yeah.
And the banh mi, delicious sandwich.
Yes.
But it has this history that really highlights a dehumanizing period in a culture where one culture dominated it. And there's something that this movie speaks to in that as well, where it's truly, in some ways, dehumanizes the identity.
Yeah, I
of these
mean,
people.
you know, there's so many things to have parallels with this subjugation of one class of people over another, men over women, that subjugation class fighting back in a bloody way and being villainized for it at the end, you know,
Yeah.
by him. You know, in the end, he wasn't really concerned about being caught. It was more about,
He's not repentant at all.
yeah,
no.
he was more about these bitches.
Yeah.
These ungrateful dogs.
Just the language choice was very...
Yeah, like you get back in your cage.
Yeah.
That is the relationship between the colonized and the colonizer, for sure, absolutely. And them banding together to demolish, you know, their captors.
Yeah.
So that to me would be the only parallel, and that's because again, I have a different interpretation of this movie than you do. I don't see it about food. I see it about cannibalism, which is, and I'm not saying I'm right or you're wrong or you're right, I'm wrong. It's just I see it differently. I don't see cuisine as part of cuisine. To me, is a tool here.
You might have kind of turned me around here in terms of like, it's not the flavor of the food. I just feel like the experience of the food here is the thing that I keep coming back to, because I keep finding these like moments where it's used as a tool to like bond people or put people in specific categories.
But,
you know?
Arthur, let me ask you something. If you are truly trying to convince someone that this cut of meat, that dog eyeball,
Why should I cover your ears?
is the best piece of meat out there.
He walked away.
Right, your dog did walk away.
He's like
Right,
this.
if you're like, wouldn't you make every effort? You're like, Jazeel, come over him.
You gotta try Moisha's eyeball.
No. You knowing the huge taboo over dog eyeball, you would make a dish. You like, there's a special ingredient. It's so and so. You wouldn't tell me it was dog eyeball.
Right.
You would want me to taste the food, and the flavor of it, and be hopefully as entranced as you are with dog eyeball.
Right. Yeah.
There's none of that in this film.
Yeah.
The power of these meals is the source of it.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying it's not about food, it's about cannibalism.
What about this movie adds something new to the canon of the Cannibalist movie? What do you think this movie sort of shows something that you weren't expecting
The
from Cannibal?
industrialization of it, you know?
I actually, yeah. I love the system of it.
Yeah,
how it works.
the prestige dining experience. It's not just Hannibal in his, butcher shop, or what's this guy's name in
Stan? No?
no, not Stan. No.
In the menu?
No, in fucking the barber.
The Barber of Seville?
Yeah, what's his name? it's a musical.
Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney Todd,
Oh,
or
good Lord.
not it's not
Yeah.
just Sweeney Todd who's trying to cover something up. You know,
Right.
it's kind of like Squid Games, and like this is a black market, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, totally.
And also realistic.
Yeah,
you're like, this has to be.
I love the part that it felt realistic.
I was like, this is real.
I mean, this is the element where I was like, it almost felt like there was some subreddit
yeah.
that the writer stumbled into and was like, oh, this gives me some.
Because you believe it,
something to think about.
you know, the society's set up in a way that this is absolutely plausible.
In the Jazeel Gayle cut, wouldn't you have loved it when we cut over to the clients and it's the guy from the fucking menu and he gets a cut of meat, and the next thing we know is he's walking out onto the dining room floor and serving it to somebody. You know what I mean? Like, what if is that somebody gets it so they could sell it at like at a high price at some very, very prestigious restaurant. We've gone pretty deep. Went pretty far. Let's wrap this up. Jazeel, your best bite and your best fright.
Best bite in the sandwich was probably like the fourth bite, because I got a good sampling of the pork, the bread, the pickles, and the jalapeno. Because like with anything, any baguette type sandwich, baguette is so big that it's like,
very long.
I wouldn't have used long, but but yeah. So that was my favorite bite, and then favorite fright was all the like the surgery scenes, I guess.
Yeah.
The close-ups of him, And I have a question for you. I noticed something about him. What's his name? Sebastian Stan's character. So he's a surgeon, right? Went to med school and all that stuff, right? He uses meat instead of tissue to address the flesh and I thought that was an interesting thing. I'm unsure of how I feel about it. I'm not sure if it's an oversight or it was a brilliant semantic choice, because someone who would have gone to medical school, 4 years undergrad biology, then the fucking, I don't know how long medical school is, another
good Lord.
whatever year, and
decade
then
plus, yeah,
and then residency, and then and this, over 10 years of his life.
And then it's like, well, I've been a cannibal this whole time.
Yes.
Because at one point he reveals he's like, it was 19 when he tried meat for the human meat for the first time.
So I got that he was a surgeon the whole, like he was an actual
practicing surgeon.
Exactly. Or he knows what he's doing. Because if he didn't, they would all be dead, right? Having gone through school that long, in your biology class, they're not referring to human tissue as meat.
I really hope not.
Exactly.
I think he would not make sense.
So that's what I'm saying. If you've been drilled in your head for the last...
that he would be referring to as
13, 14 years. The tissue is cauterized the muscle tissue, the ligaments,
Yeah.
Like no one's like, get them, put this heart meat flap. It's it's tissue. That's the medical term. So it was so interesting when he was saying, he said, I remember it caught me when he was like, I don't want you stressed, it messes up the meat. I just thought it was interesting. I was like, he should have said tissue. But I don't know. Again, I don't know if I like or dislike it, because I'm like, part of me is like, I like it because he's so far gone that it's not tissue anymore. It's meat.
It's meat. Yeah.
It's food. Or it could have been an oversight. Like no real surgeon would have called it meat. It was just an interesting observation.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's not
because
I'm just stuck on the image of a surgeon referring to things as
meat, right? That would be absurd.
Oh, we gotta sew that meat back on.
Yeah. I got a piece of meat here. Hang it. No, Or they could have done a dynamic thing where, like, when he's eating, it's meat, but outside it's tissue. When he's
operating, it's tissue.
It's tissue. Like, don't get stressed. It causes this to get into the muscle and hardens the tissue. But when he's at the dinner table, it's meat. That would have been an interesting thing.
I think this is the way they styled this character. Probably in the Hannibal show, you get Hannibal talking about human tissue, being very, very clinical. For me, midway point bite. So it'd have been like bite 4, 5, 6 when we were just getting everything in there, just all of the sauces. And honestly, like for me, the saucier bite was, I think, probably. So I think midpoint was like my favorite bite. It's kind of hard going there at the beginning. It's a journey.
Yeah,
that sandwich is a journey. My best fright, I think, when I first saw it, my favorite fright was when Sebastian Stan's character just reveals the jig. When he's just like,
I drugged you?
He's like, I'll tell you, but you're not going to like it, And he's
like, you're not going to die.
He's like, I'm going to take your meat. And then I think, to me, it was such a good twist. I think that was the freakiest, like, actual, like, visceral, like, no way. Like, what does that mean? I really felt
like her.
I was like, what? How does this make sense? What are we
Because
talking about?
she heard something worse than I'm gonna rape you and kill you.
Yeah, and also logistically, I was like, "How's this movie gonna scare me? What are we gonna be scared of? I've seen this kind of stuff." But I was just like, "This." I don't know. It was like there's like meta levels of being freaked out by it. I think the surgeries are also done pretty graphic. I think they're just a little surgeries in general.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
horror movies, I just get a little like,
come on.
"Fuck, this is too real."
Yeah.
You know? Jazeel, this was great, man.
Thank you
We covered a ton of ground.
Yeah,
I
thank you for
appreciate it.
having
Man.
me.
I'm excited about the Jazeel Gayle cut.
Of this.
The Jazeel Gayle cut. I mean, I'm gonna just start bringing you movies. Being like, what would you do with this?
No,
What would you do with this?
no. It was a great movie.
This is a really freaking cool movie.
Yeah.
It's really good. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. Jazeel Gayle, if people want to get in touch with you, if people want to find you, if people want to see your work, where can people find you? And also, do you have anything coming up?
My big social media is Instagram, just Jazeel Gayle. I just did a short film that I'm putting into festivals now. It's called Aphadia.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
And what is it called again?
Aphadia. Cool.
Jazeel Gayle.
Thank you,
It's been a
man.
pleasure. Thank you so much again for joining us. Join us next time. But until then, stay hungry and stay scared. And that's our show today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. Huge thank you once again to my guest, Jazeel Gayle. Follow Jazeel Gayle's work at Jazeel Gayle on Instagram. That's JAZEELGAYLE. And check out his short film, Aphadia, currently available on YouTube. And a huge shout out to Phorage, PHORAGE, Phorage in LA, for your outstanding, exquisite pork banh mi sandwiches. And thank you to all my scary Sammies for tuning in. I hope you're having a wonderful time, and I hope you're taking care of yourself. Until next time, stay hungry and stay scared. Bye.